In this video, I will show you how to add an interaction and pickup system in Unreal Engine 5. For our interaction system, we're going to use a blueprint interface. This will be used to communicate between the player character and the interactable objects. To create this, go to the content browser, right-click, go to Blueprint and then select Blueprint Interface. Call this BPI_interaction. Open it, then name the function interact. Add a new input and call it player character. Set the type to your character blueprint and make sure it's an object reference. Save this. Next, we're going to make two blueprints for the interactable object. One for the object that will be interacted with in the level, and the other for the object that will be held in the player's hand. Open the content browser, right-click, go to Blueprint Class and select Actor. Call this BP_base pickup item. Right-click again and create another blueprint actor. Call this BP_base held item. Later we'll be able to create children of these, which will be used for all the different interactable items in your game. Open the base pickup item, then go to the viewport. Click the Add button, then search for a static mesh. Call this item. Next, in the Details panel, go to the Static Mesh drop-down and select the mesh you want to use. Next, we want to add some physics to our object, so search for physics and set Simulate Physics to True. Enable Mass and leave it around 100. Next, we need to add a variable which will store the held item blueprint, so when the player interacts with the pickup item blueprint, they know which item to spawn in the player's hand. Add a variable and call it held item. Set the type to the base held item blueprint. Make sure this is a class reference. Compile, then set the default value to our base held item blueprint. Next, we need to add the interaction blueprint interface to this pickup. So open the event graph and go to Class Settings, then go to the Implemented Interfaces drop-down and select our interaction blueprint interface. Then under Interfaces, right-click on the interact event and implement it. Next, we need to add a custom event in the player character which will be triggered when the item is interacted with. Locate your player character blueprint, open it, then in some space, right-click and add a custom event. Call this pickup item. With the event selected, add an input and call it held item class. Set the type to the base held item blueprint. Make sure it's a class reference. Compile and save, then go back to the base pickup. Drag off the player character and search for the pickup item event. Drag in the held item variable, get it, then attach it to the event. When interacted with, we want to destroy the pickup item, so drag off and search for destroy actor. Compile and save. Next, we'll set up the held item blueprint. So go back to the content browser and open it. Click the Add button and add a static mesh. Call this item. Set the mesh to be the same one used for the pickup blueprint. In the Details panel, search for collision and set the collision preset to no collision. This is so we don't have any issues with the held item colliding with the player character. Compile and save this. Next, we want to add an input for our interaction. Go to the content browser and locate your Input Actions folder. Right-click, go to Input and add an input action. Call this IA_interaction. The value type of this input should be set to digital bool. Save and close this. Next, locate your input mapping context and open it. Click the Add button, then go to the drop-down and select our interact input. Click the keyboard button, then press the key you want to use for this input. I'm going to use E. Save and close this. Go back to your player character and right-click on the event graph. Search for the interact input action. Expand this, then drag off the started pin and search for a multi-line trace for objects. This line trace will fire when the interact input is pressed, and will detect if the object it hits has the interact blueprint interface. We want the line trace to start from the location of the first person camera, so drag in the camera, then drag off it and search for get world location. Connect this to the start pin. Next we want the line trace to end some distance in front of the camera, so drag off the camera again and search for get world rotation. Drag off that and search for get forward vector. Drag off again and search for a multiply. Right click on this pin and change it to a float. Right click again and promote it to a variable. Call this interact distance. This is effectively the max distance at which the player can interact with an object. Compile, then set the default value to around 300. Next drag off this pin and search for an add. Connect this to the multiply. Then finally connect it to the end pin. Next drag off the object types and search for a make array. This will allow us to choose what kind of objects the line trace is able to interact with. In our case we want to select physics body. Next go to the draw debug type drop-down and select for duration so that we can test the line trace. Drag off the return value and add a branch. Then drag off the out hits and add a for each loop. Drag off the array element and search for a break hit result. Expand it, then drag off hit actor and add a does implement interface. Go to the drop down and select our interact blueprint interface. Drag off the return value and add a branch. Connect this to the for each loop. This system checks if the object hit by the line trace has the interact blueprint interface. We'll check to see if this is working by adding a print string to the true pin, then connecting it to the hit actor. Compile and save, then go back to the viewport. Go to the content browser and drag in the base pickup. When you press play, you'll see that if you press E on the keyboard, a line trace fires. And if the line trace hits the object, it prints its name in the top left corner. Next we're going to trigger our interaction functionality. Go back to the first person character and delete the print string. Drag off the hit actor and search for the interact function from our blueprint interface. Connect this to the true pin, then add a reroute node to keep it tidy. Next drag off the player character and search for a get reference to self. Next, to test if our interaction system is working, go back to the pickup event, drag off and add a print string. Compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. As you can see, when you interact with the object, it deletes itself. This means that the interact event is successfully triggering inside the pickup. You can also see that the print string is being triggered, meaning that the pickup is successfully communicating back to the player character. Next we're going to spawn the item in the player's hands once they interact with it. Go back to the player character and delete the print string. Drag off and search for spawn actor from class. Connect the holding item class to the class pin. Next, drag in your character mesh, then drag off it again and search for get world transform. Connect this to the spawn transform pin. Next, right click on the return value and promote it to a variable. This will store our held item. Next, we want to attach the object to the player's hand. So drag off here and search for attach actor to component. Drag in the character mesh and connect it to the parent pin. Next, we need to create a socket on the character's hand to attach the object to. To do this, click on the character mesh, then in the details panel click the Browse to Asset button. Open the skeletal mesh, then click on this button to open the skeleton. Scroll down until you find the bone of the hand you want to use. Select it, then click the Add button, then add a socket. Rename this to item_socket. We need to use this exact name in our character blueprint, so double click on it and copy it. Save this, then go back to the player character. Paste it into the socket name. Next, set all of these drop downs to snap to target. Compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. Now when you interact with the object, it should spawn and attach to the player's hand. However, as you can see, it's not positioned in the correct place. To fix this, go back to the character's skeleton. If you're using an animation, go to Preview Animation and select the one you're using. Next, right-click on the socket and add a preview asset. Select the one you're using for your pickup. You can rotate, move and resize the socket until the item fits perfectly in the player's hand. When you're happy with its position, click Save, go back to the viewport and press play. Now when you pick up the item, it will be positioned perfectly in the player's hand. Now we want to make it so when the player presses the interact key again, they drop the item. To do this, go back to the player character and create a new variable. Call this isHoldingItem. Make sure it's set to Boolean, then drag it in after the attach actor to component. Set it to true, then connect it up. Next, after the interact input, drag it in again. Drag off and add a branch. Connect it to the started pin, then drag off the false pin and connect that to the line trace. This means that the line trace will only fire when the player is not holding an item. If isHoldingAnitem is true, we'll perform our drop item functionality. For this, we're going to create a custom event. Call it drop item. Drag off the true pin and search for the drop item event. Next, drag off the event and add a spawn actor from class. This will spawn the pickup back into the level. To do this, we need to get the class from the pickup and pass it into the player character. Click on the pickup item event and add a new input. Call it pickup item class. Set the type to be our pickup blueprint. Make sure it's a class reference. Next, right-click on the pin and promote it to a variable. Connect it between the event and the spawn actor. Next, go back to the base pickup. Right-click and search for Get Reference to Self. Drag off it and search for Get Class. Connect this to the pickup item class pin in the pickup item event. Compile and save, then go back to the player character. Connect the pickup item class variable to the spawn actor. Next, we want to spawn it at the location of the held actor. This is so it falls from the player's hand when they drop it. Drag in the held item and get it. Drag off and search for Get World Transform for the item static mesh. Connect this to the spawn transform. Next, drag in the isHoldingItem variable, leave it set to false, then connect it up. Next, we want to destroy the item in the player's hand, so drag in the held item variable, then drag off it and search for destroy actor. Connect this up. Compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. Now you should be able to pick up and drop the item. Next, I'm going to show you how to make children of the item so that you can have multiple different pickups. Before this, we're going to quickly go back to the player character and turn off the debug for the line trace. Next, go back to the content browser and right-click on the base held item. Click Create Child Blueprint Class. This will inherit the functionality from the base held item. Open it, then click on the mesh and change it to whatever you'd like. Save it, then go back to the content browser. Right-click on the base pickup, then select Create Child Blueprint Class again. Name this whatever you'd like, then open it. Click on the mesh and set it to the same as before. Go to Class Defaults, then set the default held item to the one we just made. Compile and save, then go back to the viewport. Go to the content browser, then drag in the new pickup. If you press play, you'll be able to pick up the new item, however it won't be positioned properly in the player's hand. To fix this, go back to the held item, and move it around until when you pick it up it's in the right position. Finally, we're going to make it so you can only see the hand when you pick up an item. To do this, we need to go back to the player character. At the end of the drop event, drag in the character mesh, then add a set visibility. Connect this up and leave it set to false. Next, copy this and paste it after the pickup item event. Connect it up, then set this to true. Finally, click on the character mesh and in the details panel, search for visible. Set visible to false. Compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. You should now have a working interaction and pickup system. If this video helped you, please feel free to like and subscribe or support me on Patreon so that I can keep making these Unreal Engine tutorials. Thank you so much for watching.